Or, what would you do if, while flying high above the clouds, you suddenly heard the engines go silent? That deep, steady roar that fills the cabin, just stops. The sound fades, your stomach drops, and for a moment, the only thing you can hear is your heartbeat. You look out the window. The ground is far below. The clouds are drifting past, but something feels wrong. The plane isn't climbing anymore. People start looking around, whispering, and you can see worry on their faces. It's one of the scariest thoughts a traveler can have. What if the engines fail? After all, those engines are what keep a plane in the sky, right? Without them, wouldn't the plane just fall? Well, here's the surprising truth. Not at all. Airplanes are built for this. Pilots are trained for this. And most importantly, the physics of flight means that even if both engines stop working, the plane doesn't just drop out of the sky like a rock. It can still glide safely, smoothly, and for a very long distance. Still, it's a terrifying idea, isn't it? You're sitting inside a metal tube, flying at 35,000 feet, moving faster than a car on a highway, and suddenly one of the engines, or even both, stop working. It's not something you ever want to experience. But knowing what really happens in that moment might change the way you think about flying forever. You see, pilots are some of the most trained professionals in the world. Before they ever fly a real passenger plane, they spend hundreds of hours in simulators practicing emergencies of every kind, including engine failure. They learn exactly how to respond, step by step, calmly and professionally. And what they do next can turn a situation that sounds terrifying into something completely under control. But let's step back for a moment. Why does this topic even matter? Because flying still scares a lot of people. Even though statistics show it's the safest way to travel, the thought of being so high up, so far from help, makes some passengers nervous. Maybe you felt that tiny jolt of fear during turbulence, or when you hear an unfamiliar sound mid-flight. That's normal. Humans weren't born to fly, but we've either learned to do it safely through science, design, and training. So, in this video, we're going to explore the truth about what happens when a plane's engine fails. We'll break it down step by step, in simple language. You'll learn how airplane engines actually work, what pilots do when one fails, how planes are built to handle it, and why it's almost never as dangerous as it sounds. And if you stay with me till the end, I promise, you'll never look at flying the same way again. You'll learn about real-life events where planes lost power and still landed safely. You'll see how calm, quick thinking, and brilliant engineering turned disaster into survival. And you'll realize something powerful, that flying is not just safe, it's one of the most carefully planned human achievements in history. But first, picture this. You're sitting on a long flight across the ocean. The seatbelt sign is off, and you're watching a movie. Everything feels normal. Then suddenly there's a strange sound, a pop, maybe a thud. The vibration in the cabin changes. The pilot's calm voice comes on. Ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced a minor issue with one of our engines. But don't worry, the aircraft is completely under control. Your first reaction might be fear. But behind those words is something most people don't know. Even with one engine gone, a commercial jet can keep flying safely for hours. Many planes are tested to continue flights across oceans on just one engine. That's how confident engineers are in their design. And here's something even more amazing. Even if both engines fail, yes, both the planes still won't fall instantly. Modern airliners are designed to glide for miles and miles. From cruising altitude, a large jet can glide for more than 100 miles without power. That's enough time for the pilots to find a safe place to land. Does that surprise you? Most people don't realize that airplanes don't rely on engines for lift. The wings are what truly keep the plane in the air. The engines just provide the forward push. Once the engines stop, the wings still generate lift as long as the plane keeps moving forward. And that's why it can glide. So, next time you board a plane, remember this. Pilots train for emergencies that almost never happen. Airplanes are tested under extreme conditions most people can't even imagine. Every system has a backup, and sometimes even a backup for the backup. By the end of this video, you'll understand how all of that works together. We'll see how pilots handle engine failures calmly, what the aircraft is designed to do automatically, and how ordinary flights have turned into unbelievable stories of skill and survival. And here's your reward for staying till the end. You'll hear about a true story of a plane that lost all power at 41,000 feet and still managed to land safely. Squints, one of the most amazing examples of human skill and engineering working together. So, buckle your seatbelt, keep your tray table up, and get ready to learn something that will make you feel safer every time you fly. Let's uncover the truth about what really happens when a plane's engine fails in the sky. Before we talk about what happens when an engine fails, let's first understand what airplane engines actually do. Many people think that engines are the only thing keeping a plane in the air, but that's not true. The real hero of flight isn't the engine, it's the wing. The engine's job is to push the airplane forward. The wings use that forward motion to create lift, which keeps the plane flying. Sticking your hand out of a car window while driving. When you tilt your hand slightly upward, you feel it rise against the wind. That's lift. Air moves faster over the top of your hand and slower underneath, creating an upward force. Now, imagine that hand is a wing, and the car is moving hundreds of miles per hour. That's how an airplane stays in the sky. The engines just give the plane the push it needs to move through the air. So, what kind of engines do airplanes use? Most commercial planes have jet engines. Inside a jet engine, air goes through several stages. First, the air is sucked in from the front. Then it gets compressed, which means it's squeezed tightly to make it denser. Next, fuel is added and burned in the combustion chamber. This burning creates hot, high-pressure air that blasts out the back, pushing the airplane forward. That push is called thrust. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Suck air in, squeeze it, burn fuel, and blast it out the back. The reaction of the air rushing backward pushes the plane forward, just like how a balloon shoots across the room when you let go of it. Now, here's something important. Commercial airplanes usually have more than one engine. Most large jets have 2, some have 4, and a few older models even had 3. Why? Because having multiple engines adds safety. If one engine fails, the other one can still keep the plane flying. The plane might not climb as high or move as fast, but it will stay steady in the air. Let's take a simple example. Think of riding a bicycle. The engines are like your legs. If one leg gets tired and stops moving for a bit, you can still pedal with the other leg. You might slow down, but you don't stop completely. That's how planes handle engine loss. But what about smaller planes? Some aircraft, especially small private planes, have just one engine. If that engine fails, the pilot has to glide down safely and land at the nearest spot possible. This might sound dangerous, but pilots are trained to handle it calmly. Small planes can glide for several miles even without power, giving pilots time to plan and land safely. Now, commercial jets are even more advanced. They are designed with so much redundancy that losing one engine doesn't create panic. It activates a procedure. When one engine fails, the pilot doesn't scream or freeze. Instead, they follow a checklist that's been practiced countless times in simulators. They adjust the thrust on the working engine, maintain control, and start planning where to land. You might be wondering, how often does an engine actually fail? The answer might shock you. It's extremely rare. Modern jet engines are among the most reliable machines ever built. According to aviation safety data, a jet engine failure happens roughly once every several million flight hours. That means a single engine could run non-stop for years before even showing a problem. Engineers test these engines in extreme conditions, ice, heat, wind, and even bird strikes. They're designed to keep running no matter what. And even when something unusual does happen, the engine doesn't just explode or shut down completely. Most of the time, it's a gradual loss of power or a warning sign that gives the pilots time to react. The cockpit has advanced systems that immediately alert the pilots, showing exactly which engine has an issue and what kind of problem it is. Here's another amazing fact. Modern airplanes can even take off, fly, and land safely on just one engine. That's not science fiction, that's standard procedure. Engineers have built planes to perform at full safety standards, even with one engine out. This is where a rule called ETOPS comes in. ETOPS stands for Extended Range Twin Engine Operational Performance Standards. It's a certification that allows twin-engine airplanes to fly long distances over oceans, deserts, or remote areas. To earn ETOPS certification, the aircraft has to prove it can fly safely for hours with only one working engine. So, the next time you're flying across the Atlantic or Pacific, remember that your plane could still make it to land even if one engine stopped working halfway through. So, to sum it up, engines push the plane forward. Wings keep it in the air. Planes are designed to fly safely, even with one engine out. Engine failures are extremely rare. Pilots train over and over to handle them, and safety rules like ETOPS make sure every flight is prepared for the worst, even if the worst almost never happens. In the next part, we'll answer the big question everyone wonders: can a plane really fly with no engines at all? You might think the answer is no, but what you're about to learn will completely change your idea of how flight actually works. It sounds impossible, right? How can something that weighs hundreds of tons, flying miles above the ground, keep moving without any engine power? The truth is, it can. And not only can it fly, but it can stay in the air long enough for pilots to find a safe place to land. When people imagine an engine failure, they often picture the plane just dropping straight down. But airplanes are not helicopters or rockets. They don't rely on their engines to stay up. The wings of a plane are shaped to use the air around them to create lift. As long as the plane keeps moving forward, the wings keep lifting it. The amazing part: even without engines, planes can still move forward. How? Because of something called gliding. Think about when you throw a paper airplane. It doesn't have an engine, right? But it still flies forward and stays in the air for a while before landing. That's gliding. The same basic physics works for real airplanes, only on a much bigger and more controlled scale. When a plane loses power, it doesn't just stop in the air, it turns into a giant glider. Pilots immediately adjust the airplane's speed and angle to find the best glide ratio, which is the perfect balance between losing altitude and moving forward. For example, most large commercial jets have a glide ratio of about 15:1. Det means for every mile the plane drops in altitude, it can move forward around 15 miles. So, if a plane loses all engines at 35,000 feet, it can glide for over 100 miles before it needs to land. That gives pilots plenty of time to find a safe airport or, in some rare cases, an open area, like a river or empty field. Let's look at one of the most famous real-life examples, the Gimli Glider. In 1983, Air Canada Flight 143 was flying from Montreal to Edmonton. Somewhere over Manitoba, the crew suddenly noticed something strange. The fuel gauges weren't working properly. Moments later, both engines stopped. The plane had run out of fuel completely. No power, no thrust, nothing. Now, this could have been a total disaster. The plane was at 41,000 feet and hundreds of people were on board. But Captain Bob Pearson, an experienced pilot, kept his cool. He was also a skilled glider pilot, and that experience saved everyone's life here. And his co-pilot calculated the glide ratio, turned the aircraft toward a small, unused airfield in the town of Gimli, and began one of the most incredible descents in aviation history. The plane glided silently for about 17 minutes and then landed safely with no engine power at all. The landing was rough, but every single person on board survived. Since then, pilots have studied the Gimli glider story as a perfect example of training, teamwork, and calm decision-making. But that's not the only case. Another famous one is British Airways Flight 9, which flew into volcanic ash near Indonesia in 1982. All 4 engines stopped. Yes, all 4. The passengers were terrified, and the crew couldn't restart the engines at first. The plane started gliding down from 37,000 feet. The pilots didn't panic. They calmly followed their emergency procedures, and after descending several thousand feet, the engines finally restarted. They landed safely soon after. And then there's the one everyone knows, US Airways Flight 1549. The Miracle on the Hudson. In 2009, a bird strike took out both engines of an Airbus A320 just minutes after takeoff from New York. Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger made the quick decision to glide the plane and land it in the Hudson River. Every single person survived. These stories show something important. Planes don't fall out of the sky when engines stop. They glide gracefully, efficiently, and under control. Now, you might wonder, what does the pilot do during this glide? The moment the engines fail, the pilot's first task is to maintain the right speed for gliding. Too slow, and the plane could lose lift. Too fast, and it could descend too quickly. So they keep a steady glide speed, using gravity and forward motion to stay in control. They also communicate with air traffic control, letting them know what's happening and asking for help in finding the nearest place to land. Modern aircraft are equipped with multiple backup systems, including batteries, generators, and hydraulic power. So even with engines off, pilots can still steer, communicate, and control most systems. Another thing people often don't realize is that engine failure training is a major part of every pilot's education. In flight simulators, pilots practice scenarios where one or both engines stop working at various altitudes and speeds. They learn exactly how to respond, step by step, until it becomes instinct. So, when it happens in real life, which is extremely rare, they already know exactly what to do. It's also worth remembering that the air is full of safety nets. Large commercial jets always fly routes that keep them within safe gliding distance of airports or emergency landing zones. Especially on long international flights. Even if they're flying over the ocean, they're following strict rules that make sure they can still reach land in case something goes wrong. So yes, a plane can fly without engines. It can glide for miles, giving pilots valuable time to plan. In fact, the calm glide after an engine failure is often much smoother than passengers imagine. You might not even notice right away that the engines have stopped. Next time you hear that steady hum of engines on your flight, remember, they're there to push the plane forward, not hold it up. And if the unthinkable ever happens, and those engines stop, your pilots are trained, your aircraft is built for it. And physics itself is on your side, too. In the next section, we'll dive deeper into what exactly pilots do, step by step, when an engine fails mid-air. You'll see how their training, teamwork, and technology work together in those critical minutes to turn what sounds like a disaster into a carefully managed situation. So, now we know that airplanes can glide and stay in the air even without engines. But what exactly happens in the cockpit when an engine fails? What do the pilots actually do in those first few seconds? Most people imagine panic, flashing lights, alarms, and chaos. But inside the cockpit, it's the opposite. It's calm. Pilots are trained to respond like machines, steady, focused, and precise. Every move they make follows a plan they've practiced again and again. Let's walk through it step by step. Step 1. Stay calm and fly the plane. The very first rule every pilot learns is simple. Fly the plane first. That means before worrying about what went wrong, the pilot makes sure the aircraft stays level and under control. When an engine fails, the plane might slightly pull or tilt to one side because thrust becomes uneven. The pilot immediately corrects this by adjusting the controls and using the rudder to balance the aircraft. Within seconds, the plane is flying smoothly again, just with less power. The pilot then sets the correct airspeed for safe flight. This speed depends on the type of aircraft and the situation, but it's usually marked on their instruments. Keeping the right speed is key to preventing the plane from losing altitude too fast. Step 2. Identify the problem once the aircraft is stable. The next step is figuring out what exactly happened. Pilots quickly scan the control panels to confirm which engine has failed and why. Modern planes make this easier by showing alerts on large digital screens. The system might display a message like engine 2 oil pressure low or engine flame out. But pilots never assume they double-check, using their instruments and even visual cues if possible. The goal is to be absolutely sure which engine has the issue, because reacting to the wrong one could make things worse. This is where teamwork comes in. The captain and first officer work together, speaking every step out loud to avoid confusion. One flies the plane, while the other runs through the checklist. It's a smooth rhythm of communication and trust. Step 3. Secure the failed engine once they've confirmed which engine failed. Pilots take the steps to secure it. That means they make sure it's safely turned off and not creating any danger, like fire or damage. They pull back the throttle for that engine, cut off its fuel supply, and turn off its electrical systems. If there's smoke, strange vibration, or a fire warning. They can also use the built-in fire extinguisher system to put it out instantly. Don't worry, this sounds dramatic, but it's all part of standard safety design. Each engine is isolated from the rest of the aircraft, meaning a problem in one engine can't spread to the other. The systems are independent, so the working engine keeps running perfectly. Step 4. Communicate with air traffic control once the situation is stable and safe. The pilots contact air traffic control ATC. They use a calm, professional tone. No shouting, no panic. It usually sounds something like this. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Flight 276. Engine failure. Maintaining altitude 30,000 feet. Requesting immediate vectors to nearest suitable airport. That one message tells ATC everything they need. There's a problem. The plane is under control, and they need a route to land. Air traffic controllers instantly clear nearby airspace. Provide directions to the closest airport and alert emergency crews, just in case. From that point on, the pilots and controllers work together to bring the plane down safely. Step 5. Plan the landing. The next step is deciding where and how to land. If the plane is near a major airport, the pilots will usually return there. If they're flying over a remote area or ocean, they use navigation systems to find the closest possible place that can handle an emergency landing. Here's something impressive. Even with one engine out, commercial planes can climb, cruise, and land normally. Pilots adjust the thrust on the remaining engine to balance the aircraft and continue flying safely. They also calculate fuel, distance, and wind direction to plan the smoothest route. Every detail matters, and the onboard computers help make those calculations quickly. Step 6. Prepare the cabin once the flight path is set. The pilots let the cabin crew know what's happening. Flight attendants are trained to stay calm and prepare passengers if needed. Usually, the captain will make a simple announcement, something like, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a minor technical issue with one of our engines. The aircraft is perfectly under control, and we're diverting to the nearest airport as a precaution." They always speak in a calm and confident voice. Why? Because confidence spreads. When passengers see that the crew is calm, they stay calm too. Behind the scenes, the cabin crew checks seat belts, secures loose items, and reviews landing instructions, just in case. Step 7. Descend and land safely as the aircraft approaches the chosen airport. The pilots start their descent. They control the glide path carefully, keeping speed steady. The one working engine provides enough thrust to adjust altitude and direction as needed. Theme. Even if both engines have failed, the plane can glide down smoothly under full control. Pilots line up with the runway and use all remaining energy to make a gentle landing. Once the wheels touch the ground, emergency vehicles might follow the plane, not because there's danger, but just as a safety precaution. In most real cases, passengers step off the plane completely unharmed. Step 8. The debrief and investigation. Spit. After landing, the airline and maintenance teams take over. They inspect the failed engine, check for damage, and gather data from the flight recorders. Every incident, even a small one, is investigated carefully. That's how aviation keeps getting safer. Every event becomes a lesson for future flights. So, to sum it up, when an engine fails, pilots don't panic. They fly the plane, find the problem, secure the engine, communicate, plan, and land. It's a calm, logical process that's been drilled into them through years of training. Most passengers might never even realize how much is happening behind the cockpit door. But every time you fly, remember, your pilots are ready for any situation, even the ones that almost never happen. In the next section, we'll take a closer look at the planes themselves. You'll see how aircraft are built with safety in mind, and why losing an engine isn't the end of the world, but something engineers have planned for from the very beginning.